Good evening and welcome to Greater Somerville for November 4th, 2014, election night here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the city of Somerville. I'm Joe Lynch.
And I'm KyAnn Anderson.
2 weeks in a row we're together.
I know.
People are going to think we ran out of guests.
I know. Well, we didn't. We didn't. It's a heavy-hitting week. A lot of politics.
Right. And I think this is a fitting way for Scat TV and our show to sign off on election season 2014.
It's been a busy season for everyone.
It's been a very busy season. Before we go any further, I'm going to publicly thank some of the elected officials who have come to Scat TV. They've come on to Greater Somerville election specials to keep you, the voters, informed about who is running for office. Dawn Berwick, Martha Coakley, Evan Falchuk, Angus Jennings, Steve Kerrigan, Tom Conroy, Denise Provo, and Christine Barber.
I was just going to say
Christine Barber. All have come down here to try to get their message out to you. If you have not voted yet, it is Tuesday, November 4th, 2014. You have approximately 28 minutes.
28 minutes.
To get to the polling place.
So get there.
Right.
We're going to actually open up the phone lines tonight, just because we don't do that often, but we figured since, you know, we gabbed a lot last week.
We'd like to hear what you thought of the ballot questions, what you thought of our show last week talking about the ballot questions. From what we see, it was a pretty hot topic. Yeah. People were going onto our website, as other websites, media websites, and looking at what we kind of thought about it. But we would encourage you to give us a few minutes. We're going to talk about the voting as we see it in Somerville today. We're going to talk about some other things in politics. We're going to open up the phone lines, 617-628-9876. I'm sorry we don't have the graphic to put up, but we'll say the number a few times. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, write it down.
So you voted. You have your pin.
You know, I did vote. I laugh because this was specifically an election special.
I know.
And I come in and Joe doesn't even have a sticker on. You did vote. I do know that.
It was on my jacket. Somehow it got lost in the fray.
That's fine. At least you have a nice tie on.
I did. I did.
You dressed up for the occasion.
You told me to get rid of my hiking boots from last week.
If you didn't tune in last week, Joe decided he forgets. See, we are now in the kind of
new set.
Well, a transitional set. We're not quite 100% there yet, but they can see what shoes we wear, and he wore hiking boots.
And in the summertime now, I have to wear pants.
Anyway. Do call us if you have any questions.
There's one more thing about the candidates coming in here. I got a phone call from somebody in my neighborhood. Okay. Somebody I know, who wanted to know why I didn't have Charlie Baker or any of the other Republicans on the show. The reason is they did not book themselves.
I was going to say, you invited them.
All candidates for constitutional office were invited, if we could get a hold of them. Some of them didn't even have websites up. So if you remember, the way that we do this is we try to get all of our political statewide office, we try to get those folks out of the way by September. Yep. And then we give it over to the local folks.
Yes. Right. But I mean, when it gets to be so much, then we do things like specials where we have, you know, when the aldermen were running, we have little snippets of everybody.
And at last, there were 38 candidates that we were trying to get in here.
And Joe doesn't have enough time in the day.
We don't. We accomplished everything. The Baker campaign did respond and said they would try to get Charlie Baker in here in October, and it never happened. But considering the amount of ads that people have been seeing on television over the last 3 weeks,
he's busy hugging fishermen.
I think they've had enough of them.
Sorry.
I think they've had enough of the politicians for a while. So
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
You going to make your prediction or no?
You know, it's hard to say. I think. Let's just, well, maybe at the end of the show. Let's hold on to that.
The end of the show.
One thing was interesting. I went into vote, as I normally do, and I walked in there, and it was kind of early in the morning. I wasn't quite awake. I haven't had my coffee. And I walk in line, and everyone was taking out their IDs. And, you know, I was walking Oreo, so I was like, I didn't have my ID. I'm like, oh, crap, I don't have my ID. But then I'm like, wait a minute. We don't need our, and thank goodness I know a lot of the voting people, so they know who I am. But that being said, everyone's like, oh, I thought we had to have our ID. And I'm like, no, that's in Texas.
You know what that tells you, though?
It tells you people are thinking about it.
It tells you they're thinking about it, but it tells you there's an awful lot of people in Somerville who come from out of state. And this may be one of their first times voting here.
Yeah, they did say they were from Texas, which I thought was interesting.
Because other states do require identification in order. You know, it's kind of a toss-up, I think. I'm in favor of showing identification with your address on it. I am in favor of that.
Yeah.
Because that proves that you are a resident of that city that you're voting in. Now, there's all kinds of rules about voting, that if you move within 6 months or a year, blah, blah. I happen to think that voting is a very, very important thing for everyone to do. Everyone who's of age, register to vote. I think a lot of people who watch this show know my political bent, right? But I don't force that on anyone. Democrat, Republican, unenrolled, any of the third parties, I think it's a privilege to vote. And I love going to vote.
I agree with you, but I also have more of an issue when there are people out there that are very vocal and very upset about what's going on, but yet they don't take part. Like that's just kind of like sitting in the background.
And how do we know that, KyAnn? We know that because you've worked on political campaigns. Yes. I ran for office. I've worked on many, many political campaigns. Whether people know it or not, there's a database that says you voted.
I know.
On such and such a date, you voted in this election, this election. It doesn't tell who you voted for, but it says that you showed up at the polls and you voted.
Well, that's a good way to narrow it down. But anyway.
Right.
So yes.
Election night.
It's election night.
You know, can you imagine with the amount of money that these candidates have spent and the amount of time that they have spent away from their families?
I think is a huge impactful thing. I think the money thing, without getting too much into it, I think, and on my soapbox, I just think that if you don't have a ton of money to pump into all these negative ads, there are certain people that use it for not the reasons that I would choose to, and I just feel like it's a complete disadvantage if you're not a person that has a big open, a big fat bank account.
I wish it were a different way, but politics, since the Greeks and the Romans, has been about positive campaigning and negative campaigning.
Well, I get it. I can handle. I have a thick skin. I work with you. I think that there's definitely something about like negative campaigning. Fine, get the word out about certain things, but if need be. But just I don't like money to influence politics too much, but it's inevitable.
I don't either. It's local, it's statewide, and it's national.
Well, that's one of the reasons why. Honestly,
that's what they say. Politics is a business, and money influences.
Pay to play.
Pay to play.
Unfortunate.
That's coming up real all over the place on blogs and every place else.
Well, we were there. We were there that night.
Yep.
At the chamber. Anyway, that's unfortunate. So, what do we want to talk about? Because we already went through the ballot questions.
I wanted to ask your perception.
We should throw out the number one more time. Write this down.
617-628-9876. If you got something you want to say about the candidate that you voted for, or the candidate you voted against, whether they be statewide or local, the questions that were on the ballot. We did our show last week. I think it was nice. I don't usually crow about the show, but I think it was unusually well done.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of hits on the website. A lot of the media folks said that was. It was homey. It was folksy. It was you and I. It was folksy. It was you and I talking about how we perceived those questions.
Yeah.
Right up until 4 o'clock this afternoon, I had somebody at work. He came flying into the office and he said, "Can you explain those 4 questions to me again?"
Here's the link.
GreaterSomerville.wordpress.com.
GreaterSomerville.wordpress.com.
Right. Go to our website.
So,
see what we have.
Do we want to talk local? Do we want to talk like bigger picture? I'm fascinated by the bigger picture in terms of the control of the Senate. I think that'll be a very interesting thing. You've got what? It's so hard to know with all these predictions because everybody out there has their theory. But there's basically the 5 tight Senate races, right? In terms of
very tight for control of the Senate.
Correct.
Right.
So right now we're at 45.
Senate. Right.
Republicans held 45 seats. Democrats 55, and they're looking at swapping that.
I can make my prediction up in New Hampshire, though. Can I do that?
Oh, my God.
Because that's one of the seats. That's one of the seats. I think Jean Shaheen is going to retain her seat up there against Scott Brown.
Yeah.
I mean, public servants are public servants. It depends on how much cred you have.
Yeah.
And as you know, and I've said this before on the show, incumbents are very difficult to unseat.
They are.
Unless there's a scandal. And I think Scott Brown, whether you like him or dislike him, there is always a sense of when somebody moves from one state to another or one city to another and then runs for political office, they get that moniker as being a carpetbagger. They're just doing it for political gain. And I think that's kind of hurting him up in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that'll be kind of interesting to see.
What other races are out there?
Well, we've got Alaska and Arkansas, Iowa, North Carolina, KyAnn is going to come in, and then Louisiana. Now, this was interesting. I was reading up on this today, and they were talking about Louisiana being the state that's going to decide it. Have you heard this?
Louisiana is a very, very heavily Democratic state.
Yes.
And if they go Republican, that's what they call a bellwether. It's basically telling the country that even in the most bluest of blue states, heavily Democratic states, it can turn on a dime. And they may elect a Republican. Yeah.
So, you know, those are all just kind of interesting things. What I also was reading was regarding, you know, if they go 50-50, which it very well could, that would obviously be in the Democrats' favor because Joe Biden would be the deciding vote.
Break the deadlock.
Which is fantastic to hear as a Democrat.
I don't know. You think having Joe Biden with
But, okay,
with his finger on the trigger would be good?
My point is, no, I have.
I don't know.
Well, you know what's interesting because there's some politicians or there's some political analysts that are saying that in fact, if the Democrats lose the Senate, right, and then you've got the Senate and the House of Representatives, then basically their feeling is that the gridlock, things are going to happen. It's not necessarily going to be that the president won't veto things, but that things, right now there's just nothing going on. And so their feeling is they're going to push things forward, but it's just not going to go anywhere because Obama's going to veto it all.
Well, you have a lame duck president.
Yeah.
He'll be in the last 2 years. You have Democrats smarting that they lost control. You'll have Republicans trying to make their mark within a very short period of time.
Yeah.
And, you know, it doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat. That happens when you have control change. The party that's now in control wants to push everything forward. And as long as you have a chief executive or the president being of a different party, you know, the political mentality is, why should I help these guys?
Yeah.
They're going to be running against my party in 2016.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why it's such a mess, because you have egos. You have party mentality.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
You know, right here, and I'm not saying this in any bad way, but you have gender voting that's going on in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They all thought, everyone's thinking that the women's vote is going to throw Martha over the top. And I'm not so sure that gender voting is going to make that much of a difference this time out.
Well, I didn't appreciate the sweetheart comment. I'm sorry. Did you hear about that?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, come on.
Yeah, but I call you some pretty bad names.
You're not running for office, and it was some sort of a, that was just kind of ridiculous.
You know
I
what?
expect
My
better than
opinion
that.
on it was benign, but it was dumb.
It was
a dumb thing
it's dumb,
to
and
say.
especially in any state, but I mean, especially in a state like Massachusetts. Yeah. Anyway, so we talked a little bit last week about the ballot questions in Massachusetts. Now, interesting. I did a little research in terms of some of the interesting ballot questions that are going on around the country.
I hope this thing is plugged in.
I know no one's calling us.
617-628-9876. Hey,
he's sick of listening to
even one of the Somerville pundit callers. Come on, call in. We know you watch the show too. I have no clue.
It is.
Let's try it.
Yeah, no one's there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, it's working. That's fine.
The speakerphone's working.
That's fine. So, marijuana. Let's talk marijuana for a second. I just find this fascinating. Okay, Alaska, Oregon, and Washington, D.C., they're up to legalize and regulate pot. Florida is up for a medicinal use only.
Yep.
D.C. already allows that as well as... But anyway, so they're up, Alaska, Oregon, and Washington, D.C.
Yep.
And obviously, we know 2012, Washington State and Colorado already legalized it. Colorado, the first to do so. So it'll be interesting to see their minimum wage.
Yep.
Big states: Arkansas, Alaska, Illinois, Nebraska, and South Dakota. So it'll be interesting to see that.
Yeah.
Hopefully those go. And
ours
then
kicks in. When do we start raising ours? 2015, late 2015,
sure.
and then into 2016.
I don't know.
Or minimum wage graduates up over the next couple of years.
It's incredible how low that is. The abortion restricting ballot questions, I want to call this attention to this. Colorado, North Dakota, and Tennessee are either ending or reducing the availability of abortions. And then we get into this personhood definition, which has already failed twice in Colorado. It's up a third time.
What does that mean, personhood?
Personhood is basically setting the definition of a person at the moment of conception. So therefore, it's stating that...
They put a time limit on it.
Well, no, it's basically saying that if you, it's like you'd be then killing a person, and then it's even stronger legislation against like the availability of abortion. So you are technically a person once fertilization.
So it's a measure.
Occurs.
It's a measure that is anti-abortion.
Correct.
It's
so like when does one become? Is it when that happens, or is it when it comes out, or whatever?
Right.
I just personally like to say that is. I'm a little bit scared of some of the things that are popping up, even though they continue to fail. But the fact that they're still on the ballot, I just think that as a female, I'm going to just say that I'm very glad to live in the state that I do. I couldn't even imagine some of those women down in Texas where a lot of those abortion clinics have been closed. Sorry, soapbox, but like realistically, I mean, thinking about being in that position where you're having to go across borders or whatever to do something that is already an emotionally, I'm sure, draining decision.
You hit the right word. It's a very emotional issue. And what you have now are opportunists. I'm not going to weigh in on the subject, but you have political opportunists who now understand that there may be an opening for a more conservative government come 2016. Because you have President Obama leaving. Nobody really knows who the front runner is going to be in the Democratic Party. Yeah. Everyone's thinking, well, if these midterm elections turn and they start to show a Democratic, more conservative country, then the Republicans could get back in 2016, and they have laid the groundwork for their agenda.
Yeah, were we going back to 1950? I mean, honestly, this is
absolutely... Yeah, but KyAnn, you know, you and I have very, very serious conversations. There are people who are so emotional about certain issues. Abortion, euthanasia, I mean, all of these things, homosexuality, they are so passionate about it, they're not going to let it go. So every time they see the door open a crack, they'll bring something back in to try to turn it on its head.
I just think some of these people, it's very hypocritical in terms of the amount of control that they're wanting the government to place onto a female and her ability to make a decision versus they don't want any government interaction at all for other things. So I completely disagree. And I hope that these states fail, all of them.
Then you're going to have to stay here in Massachusetts.
I'm just going to stay in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And be on the show. Okay, other ballot questions, just some interesting things. California raising the medical malpractice cap from $250,000 to $1 million. So I'm wondering, there's a trend there. Everybody's suing.
Does that cover plastic surgeons?
I don't know. God, I'll have to call my plastic surgeons out there, I'm sure.
For California's sake, I hope it does.
Massachusetts paid sick leave. That was actually on this national article, which I thought was interesting. Yep. Connecticut and California already have it, but the only two states that have the sick leave.
Yep.
So that's one of the ballot questions tonight.
Two modes of thought. One coming from the small business owner saying, you're going to croak me. Others coming from, my feeling is there are some real bastards out there who run small businesses, and when one of their employees gets sick, or they have to stay home and take care of a sick child, or they have to take care of a sick parent, they think nothing of firing them. You miss one day, you're gone. Or you're too much of a burden because you have illness in your family, or you have this. I don't buy it. Yeah. It's 11 or more employees. That's where it would kick in.
So it'll be interesting. And one more thing. In Oregon and Colorado, requiring GMO labeling, genetically modified. Washington already rejected this. Vermont approved it. Way to go, Vermont. I am 100% on board with that. There's a lot of things being put into food. But that's just my little nutritional.
There you go. Thank you for that whirlwind tour around the country.
You know, I do think, around the country, there's a couple more, but I'll continue. You go ahead and talk to me.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I think our ballot question initiatives, I'm not quite sure how ballot one is going to go. I mean, I listened.
Repeat just for those who didn't.
Ballot one was allowing a graduated gas tax to go up based on the CPI and the Consumer Price Index. I'm not quite sure where that's going to fall come tomorrow morning.
Gotten a lot of ones on the litter question.
I think the bottle bill, I think that's going to go down.
Go down as in pass?
As it will not pass.
Really?
Yeah.
What makes you think
because
that?
I think this election season is about the economy. And as I said last week, people are so tired of being nickeled and dimed. The intent is good, but I don't think they like the fact that they look at that deposit as a tax. So I don't think that's going to pass, my opinion.
Okay.
The other was casinos. I think we keep casinos in Massachusetts.
Really?
I think that's going to stay where it is.
That'll be interesting.
Yep. Yeah. And hopefully the
sick leave.
Sick leave, I hope it passes. I voted for it.
Yeah.
So that's where the ballot questions are.
So here's a question on that, and I think I brought this up last time. If you work at a company, it has to be based here, correct? Because I work at a company, but its headquarters in California, so one would assume that it would have to follow those. Oh, but wait a minute.
Because they're operating out of
According to my trusty. Wait a second. I just read that California already has paid sick leave, so I should already be getting sick leave.
Right.
Huh. Well, I'll have to check.
And I think most companies understand it, and most companies on this paid sick leave thing are given the freedom to formulate that the way they want.
Yeah.
They must guarantee the 5 days, but they can put restrictions on them and say, you're not going to get paid for these if you don't use them. You can't carry them over. You can't use them in conjunction with vacation. You can't use a Friday and Monday for, 6 weeks in a row. I mean,
what I have is like a personal, I think they're called personal days.
Right.
And you can use them for, medical things, but also
you can bank them for the year. I mean, it's not like you accrue them month to month to month. It's you're given those on January 1st, and if you use them all together in 1 week, you've used them. But yeah, I mean, I agree with it from the standpoint of I don't like when people come into my office and they're sick. They're sneezing and they're blowing their nose and they're complaining about a runny nose or they get a scratchy throat. I mean, stay home and take care of yourself and then come back. Because if you go to work and you wear yourself down, you're going to be sick for another 4 days.
But an interesting fun fact here. Let's switch to medical for a second. I knew a doctor of infectious disease, and he told me that people are always so concerned about when people are sniffling and sneezing around them. And in fact, they are the most infectious a couple days before the symptoms occur. Unlike Ebola, which is the opposite.
You're not going to go there.
No, but I'm just saying, one of the things people are freaked out about is that so-and-so went bowling in New Jersey or wherever he was in New York. And in fact, it's not until you are symptomatic when in fact that becomes very infectious.
We're totally straying here away from election
night. The woman in Maine, go her. I don't know her name.
Leaving?
The nurse.
Leaving her home?
Yes. She went to spin class.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I err on the side of caution with that stuff.
Well, the spin class is questionable because you're sweating and stuff. But like if you were out for a walk.
If I was in spin class... If I was in spin class and I saw this woman come in and I knew her history, I would leave. I would be very upset.
Yeah, I think in that instance, because you're dealing with kind of like sweat.
Well, you're dealing with an unknown. I mean, there's a fear of that stuff. Yes, but if you're walking in the park,
if she's walking in the park,
if she's going out for a bike ride,
I don't really have a problem with that.
I don't care.
Okay, that was a stray. So I'm interested. I mean, we don't have all that much time left.
No one's calling us.
No one's calling us.
I think they're all at the polls. We should have waited to tell people to get out. You now only have about 13 minutes, 12 minutes.
6 minutes.
6 minutes? Or I can't see that far.
Clock. My God.
6 minutes left to get out to vote. So it's been our pleasure to do our political specials this year. But guess what? Next year is a municipal election year.
Exciting.
We get to do it all over again.
We do. What do you want to talk about in the next 5 minutes?
We have some spectacular things coming up, some shows. We're going to do our Christmas show. You know that.
We do. You're going to see the Christmas sweaters.
We're going to do our Christmas show. We have SNN, Somerville Neighborhood News, is having their first anniversary party. Yeah. That's coming up soon. Yep. Our partners at Somerville Neighborhood News. We have the new chief of police, Dave Fallon, who's booked for the show. He's coming on.
Got some the Union United people.
Union United. Your guests are coming on. Hopefully we can get the mayor back on to talk about a year-end review.
Great.
We have invited the soon-to-be former governor, Deval Patrick.
That will be exciting in
and
December.
Governor Patrick's staff has responded that they would love to come in and shoot a special with us on reflecting on his years as governor. And hopefully, whoever the next governor is, we can get them in here sometime in January, February, early next year. But we're gearing up for a bunch of new shows. We're going to try to take it on the road. You and I talked about it.
Yeah.
We're going to try to do some on-the-road specials.
The set's going to be redone. We're working on that.
KyAnn is merciless with this set. Yeah.
I'm working on that. But we are always open to ideas. If people really want, to see a certain guest, we really want to get over and do the Aeronaut Brewery,
some of the new businesses coming into
Bantam
Somerville.
Cider. All those guys and gals are doing such amazing things in Somerville, Union Square, with everything, all the development. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of stories. But we're open to other ideas if you really want to hear from someone. If you want to come on the show, you can contact us on our blog, www.greatersomerville.wordpress.com.
Who's coming in next week? Have you got a guest next week?
No.
Looks like I'll be back next week.
I don't know. We'll have to think
we'll
that.
Find somebody.
We have 5 minutes, Joe, so I'm not sure why we're cutting off so early.
I'm not. I wanted to know that,
I know, but this is like airing our dirty laundry on the show because we haven't talked about.
We usually only do it about a week beforehand.
Okay.
Unless it's somebody that we have to book. I mean,
we have to.
We have to book well in advance. But no, I saw Chief Fallon last week at a community meeting, and
I didn't go to that. I wasn't able to. How did it go? It was for Ward 5.
Which one? I went to 3.
Oh.
Which one?
There was a Ward 5. Wasn't there a Resi Stat
meeting? The Resi Stat meeting was, and it was also a Traffic Commission meeting, and there was
the safety meeting. Did you go to that?
Yes,
did you go to the safety?
I
Okay,
did.
so there's been a lot of assaults lately. This is a non-political, but it's an important issue. Specifically, there was one on Broadway and Central over in our neck of the woods.
Yeah, that was a resident of a group home who was the perpetrator, alleged perpetrator. Had multiple infractions with the law and has been under the watch of the Department of Mental Health, yet was placed in this group home on Central Street in Somerville. Who knows what happened, whether this gentleman went off his meds or whatever it was, but the neighborhood was very, very upset. And I think in order for me not to kind of flavor this, Somerville Neighborhood News was there. They did film the meeting.
Good.
And they put a part of that public meeting onto their new episode of Somerville Neighborhood News.
Was that tonight's episode?
I think it's aired tonight.
Okay, so
might have been just previous to our show.
You can check out the Scat TV website or just Google Somerville Neighborhood News and find that episode. Yeah,
the residents were very, very concerned, feeling like Department of Mental Health and VinFen, the company that operates the group home, fell down on the job. So
what did they say in terms of precautions for the neighborhood?
Basically, they're going to have to review all of their procedures on how they place residents in those group homes. But I think we're slowly running out of time, so we want to say good night, Gracie?
We could say good night. Well, for those of you who haven't voted, you've got a couple minutes left. It's our pleasure to take this night, the special election night special, and to talk to you about all the important things. So get out there and vote. And
until next time,
stay safe and
stay informed.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.